Thank you so much for coming and for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today. Honestly, I'm feeling really grateful in my heart to have the opportunity to talk to you all today about recognizing donors. What I'd like to do is to ask you all to be thinking about ways that, I see this as a sharing session, as sharing practices. We say best practices, but really I think even if some of the things that I'm here to tell you today are things you already know or that you're already doing, it's a great opportunity for all of us to just sort of inspire and energize each other. So in the second half, if you all would be thinking about ways that you maintain donor relationships and keep your donors inspired, I would love to hear from you. So the three things that we sort of focus on at the C&M Foundation, and I'm the executive director of the C&M Foundation, are expressing gratitude, number one. We actually have a gratitude plan. We're really deliberate about it, really specific about it. And so I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about things that we do to basically appreciate our donors. Additionally, listening and relationship building is something that we focus on, and as a staff, we are constantly thinking of better ways to be a more active listener with our donors, and how to look at our donors as people and people we're building a relationship with, and then demonstrating a return on investment. I think as fundraisers, sometimes we're not always thinking about that return on investment as far as what our donors want to hear. I've seen over the last 12 years that practice become more and more sophisticated in our profession, but it's, especially business-minded people, they want to know. And, to that end, I think it's also an interesting evolution that I've noticed, and that is that I love the word philanthropy. That's the industry that I'm in. But I think it's also a contract that people who have resources are wanting to affect a certain outcome in our community, and they're contracting with us to get that done, basically, and to honor that contract and what that person is trying to do. Okay, there we go. So gratitude. I think, when we talk about gratitude, we talk about really stopping and witnessing someone or a group of people in what it is that they're trying to do in this world. And I think that's a really high place of honor that we hold with our donors. And sometimes you may be with somebody who has, saved all their lives to have this opportunity to make change in the world. And to have that honor to be in that space with them, I think is pretty sacred. I want to tell a story, and I'm probably going to cry because that's what I do. I guess it was 4 years ago now. I got a phone call, and it was a woman in her late 80s, and she was calling to just find out a little bit more about C&M, and was talking about how bad she felt about the plight of youth transitioning out of foster care. And it was clear that she had a passion for that. She talked about, when she was younger wanting to be a social worker, but that wasn't encouraged in her family. So she was a professional secretary and then at one time a teacher, but she'd always had an affinity for social work. And so she asked me a lot of different questions. And at C&M, it's interesting because we're about education. We're the largest college, in New Mexico. But a lot of what we do is, supporting people what we call in a wraparound sort of way. So what is it that they need to be successful? Yes, they need academic advising, but they also sometimes need our help in supporting their social needs, understanding what community benefits are available to them. So we talked for a while, and she said, "Okay, well, thank you very much." And I thought about her for a while, and I, was going to send the sort of perfunctory thank you note that I would normally send, but I just took a little bit of time to talk about how much it meant to me to have that conversation with her, and I never heard from her again. 4 years later, I got a call from her sister that this woman had passed away, and it was her sister, and she wanted me to come to her home in the Northeast Heights. So I went. She said that she and her sister were best friends. They lived right next door to each other, two modest homes in the Northeast Heights. God, I am just a mess. It's because the gratitude guru is sitting in front of me. I'm bitten by the gratitude bug. But Anyway, this woman left $1 million to C&M for youth transitioning out of foster care. I was so blown away that that one conversation, that this woman had saved her whole life and, had just very so humbly left pretty much her life fortune to C&M to help this vulnerable part in our population. And I'm just showing kind of random slides. Again, with the gratitude, we have a naming rights campaign. We don't really call it that. We call it a permanent recognition campaign because it's not actually going to construction of facilities at C&M, but going to scholarship funding, and we give our donors opportunities to have that permanent recognition in some of our more progressive facilities. So this is one where New Mexico Educators sponsored the student plaza you can see behind. But we always have a reception for them to invite anybody they want, in their circle to just sort of celebrate that contribution. So again, with gratitude, a lot of times we have to remind ourselves to keep it at thanks. It's hard as when we have these financial goals and our organizations and boards want us to raise more and more money, but many times, it's just that conversation, that witnessing that person and what they want to do that will lead to funding later. At C&M, we really do specific, like I said, activities that just focus on gratitude. And every year, we don't actually do a lot of fundraising events. We have a very small staff, so we don't find that fundraising events are really worth the return on investment for us. We do a gala every year that is called our Donor Appreciation Dinner. And at that dinner, we give students an opportunity to tell their story. And it's quite simply just that connecting them with the students that they've assisted. And, the president talks about what are the initiatives at C&M that are going to be important for supporting students and ways that donors can get involved. But really it's the opportunity to connect donors with students, because so many times they don't have the time to come to the school and spend hours and hours really finding out what we're about. So that is what we invest in every year. I'll just be totally transparent. We earmark $30,000 for that event out of our unrestricted funding every year. We get questions all the time about, well, should we be doing that? We don't actually find sponsors for the event, like one big title sponsor, because we find that we really want it to be driven as a student event. And so we offer that opportunity for donors to connect with the students, and we find big returns on that investment throughout the years. We also have a major donor event that our board gets together with our major donors out at a beautiful home out in the mountains. We call it Sapphire and Gold. It's kind of a twist on the C&M yellow and blue. But it's an opportunity for, again, our donors to network with each other and to meet our board, who really are some of your best ambassadors for what it is that you're doing. I know the term Thankathon is nothing new, but we really invest a lot in those. And twice a year, we have our students call all of our donors, and we do spend a lot of time trying to have the student that specifically benefited from that donor's scholarship, or at least that scholarship program. It does take a lot of extra work, especially to call every single donor, but wow. Just that space that donors get into when someone's calling them and not asking them for money and just thanking them. And then, as I'm sure many of you do, we do also another Thankathon and have our board members call and thank our donors as well. And then every Friday afternoon, I take an hour out of my schedule to call all of our donors who have contributed that week. And, it's really easy to get caught up and busy and not do that. It's a great way for me to end my week and to remind me of what it is that I do and why. And it's just so funny when you call and, this is Lisa McCulloch, Executive Director of C&M Foundation. Okay, what? What are you? I just sent you a check. Leave me alone. And, I'm just calling to thank you. And the reason I allot an hour is because, again, I want to get into that space with the donors, what suggestions they might have, what experiences they might have had in being a donor at C&M. Maybe they read an article and they want to talk about that. But again, just being able to really see that donor and to learn some things to be able to maybe bring back to the college even. Valentine's Day is a big day at the CNM Foundation. Our students bake cookies and put them in attractive little Valentine's tins. And, because culinary arts is one of the big programs at CNM, it makes sense. And we have student volunteers and board volunteers, and we deliver to every donor a tin of cookies with a special card from our students. And it's, again, inspiring for us, energizing for us to have that opportunity to reach out to donors. And they're waiting a lot of times by the elevator almost for those cookies. And it's, an annual tradition. And they, again, get to have that direct experience with, a student baking cookies for them and saying thank you. So just, remembering that sometimes as development staff, we need to step back and allow our board members and our students really tell the story for us. So I talked about the donor appreciation dinner, and that's really a time where our donors and our students can engage with each other. And I do this to my staff every time I do a talk. I start calling and asking for things at the last minute, but if they can bring over a short video clip of one of our students, the kind of stories that they tell are pretty amazing. Just one of them, if we get it in time, it will be worth watching. Just these two brothers who, I think you were even at that donor appreciation dinner, out on the street at 13 in the International District, got into, selling drugs, went to prison, got their GEDs in prison, and when they came out, had the bus or whatever, the transportation that they received, drop them off at CNM. And they met with achievement coaches right away and received, the assistance that they needed. And sometimes that can be, food vouchers. It can be help with a place to live. Education at community college can mean a lot more, than just curriculum and what are the right classes to take to get this certification or that degree. Another story that comes to mind is a gentleman who was homeless for many years, struggling with drug addiction, and ended up at one of the shelters and met with a CNM instructor who was there talking about the GED program, and then he went on and is now at the Anderson School at UNM and just doing so well, and really received a lot of those support services through his time at CNM. Relationships are really important to us, and I think that, again, looking at your donors as people and not ATM machines is really how I feel about it. I think especially with, really it's any of your donors, but the larger foundations, I've really learned some difficult lessons over the last 10 years, and we're really motivated for needing this support sooner than later, but many funders are sort of experts in what it is that they want to affect, how they want to maybe end poverty in New Mexico or move children out of poverty in New Mexico or whatever it is, and not having the courage to walk with those donors and let go a little bit and realize that they might have something to teach us, and that even though you want to get this campaign wrapped up and finished, that your returns might be even greater at the end if you can just slow down and listen to what they have to say. And I often think about sometimes program officers, what that must feel like to have all of us, in front of them, just nervous, anxious. Are you going to give me money or not? And I heard you gave this organization money, and are we going to get money? And just just seeing them as people and maybe even their backgrounds before working at that foundation, getting to know them and making it real for them is something that I think is really important, especially in today's philanthropy. And I say national foundations, but I don't know really why it's any different with individuals. They have a dream, and they have a reference in their life for what it is they want to do, and really being able to listen and not be afraid to let go of control a little bit. Our foundation, we're big, 36 board members. Our board meetings quarterly are like an event, in and of itself, sometimes 50, 60 people by the time we, have speakers and students and all of the activities that go on at the board meeting. So same as with our donors, I meet with our board members every fall and really just listen, not think about what is the ask, what they give last year, what do they need to give. That usually ends up coming up in the time that we spend. But what are you seeing? How are you feeling about your board service? The most amazing things come up in those conversations that, again, pay dividends later, but I think are really important for our donors to feel. So again, just letting them know what it is you want to do, what it is we're trying to do at C&M, what is our president's agenda, and then listening to them and how they feel like they want to plug in, how they want to participate, and it may end up looking a little bit different than how you started out. Finding that match, I think, is really important, and again, just having the flexibility. So again, this is one of our investment receptions. Wells Fargo sponsored our Student Technology Center where students can come and be on the computer or meet with an achievement coach or academic advisor. And so we have a party and ask them to invite anybody they want to, and there really isn't an agenda. But it's great fun for us, and again oh, Yahoo! Okay. So return on investment, there's many ways to demonstrate that. So with us, like I'm sure you all, we send out an annual report. We send out a packet of, donors who have created their own scholarship or endowment, complete with student thank you letters and stories of how their support has helped. I feel like, all of that does take time. We send out a newsletter, but when you think about the donor isn't going to get that information any other place except for you, and that long range attention and remembering that, they're people too who, if you come back and ask for more money, you want to have a few other things happen before that, I think is really important. This is just a funny picture. So Presbyterian sponsored a wing in our health, wellness, and public safety facility there on Cole, and that was their party. And of course, if any of you know Jim Hinton, he's so funny. That's an actual high-fidelity mannequin that responds as a patient would in ways that are pretty real. So that was great fun. We went through quite kind of almost a rebranding in our philanthropy this year, in that we felt like we weren't raising the kind of money that we wanted to, and Lynn actually gratefully alluded to this in her talk. We consulted with some outside consultants and found out that, we were sort of competing with organizations that were outwardly helping those most vulnerable in a really tangible way, and we do that too. But you have to look and see, what is it that you do? How are you unique and different from the rest of the community? And really expand on that and not feel like you have to be everything to everybody, and that doesn't work anyway. What is it that distinguishes what you're trying to do? And for us, really, it's helping people retrain, re-enter the workforce to provide a better life for themselves and their families, and being there for the quality of tomorrow's workforce. It's really that simple for us. And that was tough because we had a bunch of different fundraising strategies where we were trying to, again, be everything to everybody, but I didn't feel like we were raising the resources that we needed. And so we started a campaign that was more focused on investing in the quality of tomorrow's workforce. We incorporated, in-kind contributions from the Albuquerque Business First, and we asked our donors to sort of provide editorial to the community as to why they felt like, their investment in C&M was profiting their business. And so that's what those ads are about. Don Power actually gave us the language at Jane's Corporation when he stood up and at one of the receptions that when Jane's sponsored an area in our Advanced Technology Center, he said, the economy is going to get better. And if you all care about the quality of the workforce that's available to you tomorrow, that you'll invest in C&M. So, you're investing in your bottom line. And when he's saying it, somehow it just is way more credible and authentic. And so in many cases, our fundraising increased 5 times what we typically raise. And that was not just overall, but in specific instances with donors who had been giving to us for years and years. All of a sudden, where they were giving us 5,000, they gave us 150,000 because they had this opportunity to demonstrate to the community what their investment is. So I'd just like to switch gears for a second and talk a little bit about one of the directives that was given in creating this event, and that was, follow-up. So you have an event, you have an experience with a donor, and what do you do after that? And we really do try, they talk about the 7 touches, and, you don't invite people to an event and then, ask them for money the first time. And so we actually created this event where it's called the President's Table. And we invited people to have dinner with Kathy Winograd. And so, of course, from the invitation, it would appear that you were going to have an intimate dinner with President Winograd. And what we ended up doing is had a room in our new culinary arts complex, which you all should stop by sometime and check out. It's amazing. We actually have lunches and dinners open to the public, and our students serve, and that's their opportunity to sort of intern. And so Kathy rotated amongst all the tables that evening. So they were having dinner with the president, but we were able, to get 50 or 60 of donors we had never gotten to come to an event or take our call, or, really high-level donors in our community. And so what we did after that, we invited all our board members and had board members at each table as well. And they really talked and mostly listened to these potential donors.
At Central New Mexico Community College, we know for our economy to succeed, we all need to play our part. That's why CNM is proud of the impact we're making on New Mexico's economy. A community college has a major influence on economic development through its programs, its employees, its students, and its graduates, and we take that to heart. At CNM, we offer more than 100 certificate and degree options, leading directly to jobs or transfers to four-year institutions, creating a great future for our students and our state. In fact, over the past 30 years, the region has benefited from over 4 million college credits earned by CNM students, and those credits translate to real money for the economy, to the tune of $430 million annually. Did you know every dollar the average student invests in CNM, they receive a $4.30 increase in their lifetime income? And for every dollar you invest in CNM, we provide a return on investment of $1.60. When you invest in CNM, you're investing in the future of New Mexico. And because the future is so important, CNM is committed to remaining affordable to our students and the state. In fact, CNM tuition rates are 6 times less than the average four-year institution in New Mexico. And CNM is doing its part to ensure your money is invested wisely. We've more than doubled the number of certificate and degrees awarded to our students since 2009. Why do our graduation rates matter? Each year, CNM graduates add $85 million to New Mexico's tax base. With the 30,000 students we serve each year, CNM can transform the future of our state and its economy. So, what does it all mean? It means that this year alone, CNM is responsible for a total regional economic impact of $549 million. CNM is playing our part in transforming the economic future of our state. We hope you'll join us.
So we sent that electronically, and then we had a conversation over email electronically with our board members, and in some cases via phone, to talk about what their feedback was. And we're really specific in our next follow-up, which was, one donor wanted to bring her staff in to see all of the kitchens and to meet all of the chefs, the instructors at CNM. And so, it's been a while now since the event, but we're still doing a lot of follow-up work on what is it that these folks who have never really had an experience with CNM before, and maybe even we're still sort of in the mindset that we do GED and a lot of different programs that we are really good at, but our scope is bigger. And so just making sure that you take the time to listen to what the donors are interested in seeing, and we hope then that will pay off. just some resources. I mean, I don't know if any of you all use Wealth Engine. That's been a good investment for us to really understand. In some cases, it's quite surprising, you know, what the people that you're prospecting could quite possibly contribute. And so, you know, just using that as a tool, and again, breathing through, waiting for that opportunity to ask for funding. What is that? Okay, I can't. Wait a minute. That's okay. What I would like to. Did I go really fast? Okay, so yeah, just putting it all together. I think what I can offer is that having a really specific gratitude plan has worked for us, and you know, making sure that you at least once a quarter have a specific activity with all of your donors. You know, what are the events that you can bring people in so they can have an experience? What are the resources that you have available then to follow up with those donors? And just being really deliberate and sophisticated about what you ultimately ask for. So really, this has been an exciting fundraising year for us, just because we've sort of changed the face of how we raise money based on what C&M's role and profile is in the community. So the philanthropy has been kind of interesting in how we're interfacing with the college. What I had planned to do now was just to ask you all, you know, to share out what your experiences have been maintaining donor relationships, and what your best practices are.
Thanks. This gives me the chance to say something that I forgot to say in that first part when I was talking about recognizing from what it is that how you want to be recognized yourself. And this is kind of a don't, but I find that when I'm thanked, and in the thank you letter that comes to me, there's also another invitation to give or another pledge card, that is kind of a pet peeve for me. So what I try to do, and what Lisa was talking about, is to make those 7 connections in between the time that a contribution is made through a formal thank you letter from our CEO, you know, for tax purposes with a client story, to a card that I write that has a client photograph on the card, to really knowing our donors and making sure we have Post-its that say Accion. And when I see our contributors and they're doing good things, you know, and even contributing to other organizations, say thank you for being a part of our family too. So it becomes so much easier. It's easy to thank 7 times before the next invitation to contribute because of the things like Valentine cards or cookies or things like that. But never thank somebody and ask them at the same time.
We just had a change in leadership, so we have a new executive director. So we are creating a special meet and greet event where we're going to have volunteers help us with this too, but phone call all of our donors and invite them to meet our executive director. So it kind of resonates with your creating opportunities. That one was so obvious. So.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity. Thank you guys so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and I think that's a great way to follow this up.